entitled Mapa, Paano ka Ginawa. Okay, so this event is really to start the conversation about mapping activities, okay, especially in the Lasallian community and in the Taft community. Okay, so we have invited everyone, especially leaders, okay, or leaders from different youth mappers organizations in the Philippines to share with us what they do in their respective organizations, okay, and the different mapping projects that they have initiated. Okay, and then we also have with us today the one of the lead mappers, or the lead one of the leaders, okay, of Youth Mappers organization in the Philippines. Okay, sige. So we will begin our event today with our first speaker. So our first speaker is Miss Faye Andal. So she is from Youth Mappers Philippines. I believe they are based in UP Diliman or UPRI. Okay, so she will be talking about the Youth Mappers Movement. Okay, and hopefully you will be encouraged or to join the ALTDSI in establishing our own organization at DLSU. Okay, so Faye.
Hello, sir. Thank you.
Yan, sige.
Okay lang po ako. Yan, can you see my screen po? Yan. Kita naman po, no? So, hello po everyone. I'm Faye Andal and I'll be talking about Youth Mappers. But before I begin siguro, let me just thank Sir Brian for inviting us and for accepting my invitation na rin po to talk about Youth Mappers sa De La Salle University, Dr. Andrew Tan Data Science Institute, para po ma-introduce yung Youth Mappers and makilala nyo ng husto yung mga local chapters natin ng Youth Mappers dito sa Philippines. And ako ulit po si Faye Andal, isa po sa Regional Ambassador ng Youth Mappers, and currently I am also a volunteer of OpenSeatMap Philippines. So later i-introduce ko din sa inyo kung ano ba si OpenSeatMap Philippines and ano yung role niya sa Youth Mappers. And I'm also currently working as a researcher and GIS specialist in UPRI NOAA Center. And ayun, si Youth Mappers, it's an international consortium of university-level student mapping clubs or organizations with local chapters in universities of various countries. And right now, we have over 300 local chapters across the world. And we're seeing more chapters as the regional ambassadors are recruiting more organizations dito sa mga areas. And we believe na we don't just build maps, but we build mappers because we want to invest more on the capacity of our students and volunteers on building more maps for the communities that we serve. So kung mas marami tayong mappers na active, then mas marami tayong communities na matuturuan ng mapping and matutulungan in solving real-world problems through mapping. And sa mga Youth Mappers chapters naman natin, hindi lang sila focused on one theme or one aspect. So lahat ng Youth Mappers natin, they focused on different problems na tinatry natin i-solve through open mapping such as OpenSeatMap. So isang example is itong local chapter natin, South Africa, which they respond to COVID-19 pandemic. So nagmapa sila ng iba't ibang features related to health institution or facilities para makatulong sa pag-respond for the pandemic. And iba pang problems na pwede nating isolve is katulad ng poverty, agriculture, food security, disaster risk. So ito yung ilan lang sa mga pwede nating gawin or isolve through open mapping. And ito lang din yung density map or heat map showing the projects of YouthMappers local chapters across the world. And kung makikita ninyo, maraming active projects in the Philippines since marami ring organizations nakikipag-partner sa local chapters ng YouthMappers para maimapa and matulungan din yung projects and communities na hawak din nila. And ano nga ba yung mga perks and benefits ng pagiging local chapter ng YouthMappers? So isa lang dito is yung fieldwork program na ino-offer ng YouthMappers network mismo. So if you have any project related to creation of new data or analysis in your chapter or in your regional community, then definitely you can apply for this program. And ang goal naman dito is to create a map for the community na merong involvement ng fieldwork or data collection using different tools and technologies na open source din. So through this program, you can avail doon sa funding na ino-offer nila para it could support the projects that you are aiming for. And aside from that, we also have a research fellowship. So ito naman is any member of your chapter and also your faculty mentor could apply for this program para matulungan din kayo on developing your research skills na magagamit niyo rin naman for your academics. And last but not the least is yung leadership fellowship na ino-offer ng YouthMappers. So dito naman is focused on building your skills on leadership, open mapping techniques, data visualization, science communication, inclusive community participation, capacity building activities, and international partnership. So usually it's a week-long fellowship program, and then the students are sent abroad for this program. So I think 5 years ago, nagkaroon din tayo ng representative from the Philippines and nasend siya sa Cape Town, I think, para dito sa fellowship program na ito. So meron din kayong opportunity to travel and to meet other people and international students para mas makakilala pa kayo ng ibang tao and also to develop your skills on technical skills and your interpersonal skills. And aside from those benefits, meron din tayong initiative called Everywhere She Maps. So ito naman is aims to increase the representation of women in mapping and also in leadership dito sa OpenStreetMap and in YouthMappers network. And dito sa Philippines, yung YouthMappers is also under an umbrella community which is called Local OpenStreetMap Philippines. So ito yung affiliated din ako as mentioned earlier. So isipin nyo isang umbrella community si OSM, and under ni OSM Philippines community, meron tayong mga small organizations na supporting OpenStreetMap Philippines. So first we have Ladies Philippines. Ito naman is a women organization that help also women to increase their knowledge and skills on geospatial technologies and tools, and also syempre to increase representation of women in this industry. And aside from Ladies, we also have MapDex, which is a LGBTQ community that aims to also increase the representation of LGBTQ community members in this mapping community. And also, sila rin is isa sa mga nagmamap ng mga HIV facilities and safe spaces for LGBTQ community dito sa Philippines. And next is yung mental health awareness group. Sila naman is yung mga nagmamap ng mga mental health service and facility dito sa Philippines. So kung mapapansin nyo, itong tatlong groups na to is more of advocate groups that use or utilize OpenStreetMap for their project. So if you're also interested or if you have advocacies then, and you can think of creating maps or helping the communities, then definitely you can be part of this community. And aside from those advocate groups, we also have a group focused on humanitarian response. Meron tayong tinatawag na organization, Humanitarian Open Seat Map Team. So sila naman is yun nga, focus on responding during disasters. Kapag may mga typhoon, sila yung mga nag-activate para maimapa yung mga communities na possibly affected by those typhoons or kahit southwest monsoon or habagat. And syempre, hindi naman din magpapahuli yung mga YouthMappers chapters natin dito sa Philippines. So right now, we have 9 local chapters. And papakita ko sa inyo yung mga locations and yung distribution ng chapters across the Philippines. So yung unang chapter natin is yung FEU, Institute of Technology, which was established, I think, 2017. So sila talaga yung naunang chapter or pinanganak dito sa Philippines through the help of Miss Selena Agaton of Map the Philippines. And then yung next chapter natin is UPRI or UP Resilience Institute YouthMappers, which I also co-founded in 2018 naman. So ito is under the research organization UP Resilience Institute. So back then hindi pa ako regional ambassador noon, but I also pushed for applying to YouthMappers since we can also have some benefits for applying. And para mas marami rin kaming ma-reach na organization para ma-help din yung mga communities na yun. And next chapter naman is FEU Alabang. So hindi din talaga magpapatalo yung FEU, nakadalawang chapter sila for YouthMappers. So I think 2019 sila na-establish. And I could tell na sobrang competitive din talaga ng group na to. Before, nung 3 chapter pa lang yung meron sa Philippines and may mga competitions kaming mga sinasalihan. Talagang FEU Alabang yung palaging nananalo doon sa mga competitions or events na yun. Ayun. And then we also have National University. So sila naman pinanganak na during the height of the pandemic. So last 2020, nag-apply sila through the help of an alumna from FEU Institute of Technology. And then we also have University of Makati. And then if you can notice, so far yung 5 chapters na to, nasa Manila lang. So as a regional ambassador, I aim to recruit more student organizations na hindi lang sa Metro Manila since gusto naman natin kasi talaga i-spread out yung chapters natin across the Philippine Islands. Hindi lang siya Manila-centric but lahat ng areas na mababa yung count of user or volunteers and also yung representation of local communities is madagdagan natin through our chapters. And so I recruited Visayas and Mindanao universities para nga magkaroon tayo ng representation doon sa areas na yun. So ang 6th chapter natin is si University of the Philippines, Visayas, Tacloban. And nandito rin si Michael, isa sa student leaders from UP Visayas Tacloban YouthMappers. So siya na lang yung mag-introduce sa chapter nila and also their ongoing and past activities. And sila yung kauna-unahang chapter outside Metro Manila and in the Visayas Islands. And yung next naman is Sulu State College, of course from Sulu. So sila naman yung first university chapter from Mindanao. And I could also tell na very interested sila on mapping kasi sa university or sa college nila, wala talaga sila at all background on mapping, on open sheet map or on geography or geodetic engineer. But they're keen to learn more about YouthMappers and also about mapping using OpenStreetMap or other open source tools. kaya sila nag-push na mag-apply for YouthMappers. So nakaka-inspire din yung story nila. And based din sa mga past meetings namin, challenge talaga sa kanila yung internet connection. So very limited yung mga training na in-undergo nila for YouthMappers and also for OpenSeatMap. But despite these challenges, ayun, very keen sila to learn and be involved. And yung next naman is University of Science and Technology of Southern Mindanao. And ito din yung meron tayong representative ngayon from AGES, yung name nung chapter nila. So si Sir Den, yung mag-i-introduce nun later. And just recently, they also applied for the OpenSeatMap Booster Grant, and isa sila sa mga nakakuha noong grant na yon para ma-implement yung project nila for the area. And last but not the least is Bicol University. And sila yung last na chapter na naging involved or naging officially member ng YouthMappers network. And ang background naman nila is talagang geodetic engineering students sila. So meron talaga silang background and experience on mapping. So, but please don't be discouraged if you don't have any background at all on mapping, on OpenSeatMap, kasi we're here naman to train you, to give you some a learning experience about mapping, OpenSeatMap, and other open source tools. Ayan. So, just to give you a background lang din on what we do sa YouthMappers chapters natin dito sa Philippines para mas localize yung context. So, since nung pandemic, very limited yung interaction natin face-to-face kasi nga hindi pa safe lumabas. So, lahat ng trainings and activities natin related to mapping was conducted online. So, nung nag-start yung pandemic, nag-implement kami ng projects related to COVID-19 response. So, yung unang-una doon is called #Mapagaling. So, it aims naman to map the health facilities in the Philippines through OpenStreetMap. And then we also have crowdsourced mapping for open stores and essential facilities during the lockdown kasi right now wala tayong open data or open database for these types of facilities, kaya we initiated on mapping them. And then we also partnered with Humanitarian OpenStreetMap team to map Quezon City and Metro Manila para maimapa lahat ng building footprints in the municipality. And actually, yung UPRI, ginamit nila yung data na to para they could analyze the data from different statistics and itong ang building footprints para malaman kung ano yung level of community quarantine yung pwede nilang i-recommend to the Quezon City LGUs. From this project, nagkaroon ng 644 contributors, including the YouthMappers members from the Philippines and all over the YouthMappers chapters across the world. And 300,000 yung buildings na na-create from this project. In 62 days, natapos siya. Ayun nga. Big thanks to YouthMappers members and our volunteers para matapos to lahat. Kasi very challenging siya kasi nga very dense yung population sa Quezon City. So isa-isang minap yung mga building footprints doon sa area na yun. So it took time for us to finish this project. And aside from those, we also have some projects na for a cause. So ang idea is we map features on OpenSeatMap, and then we donate fund to our partners para magamit na yung pera for their advocacies then or other projects. And we also do some mapping competitions, paramihan ng buildings or features na imapa sa OpenSeatMap para our students or our members are motivated din sa pagmamapa. Kasi of course, it involves labor din, yung time and effort to map. Syempre may corresponding ano din yon, recognition. So, ayun. So, ito lang yung ilan sa mga photos na kinuhanan namin during our mapathons or mapping workshops. Ayan. So, ito yung mga members ng FEU, Alabang, UPRI Youth Mappers, Bicol University, and other chapters pa. So, definitely, once you've become a part of Youth Mappers network, pwede rin kayo magsagawa ng mga sarili nyong MAPI events. Ayan, so after this event, maybe our request is to map your own neighborhood kasi ito naman talaga yung first step toward or yung first step sa pag-apply ng sa Youth Mappers. So first, i-map nyo muna yung neighborhood nyo or your university and make sure na or check if the university or your neighborhood has complete or updated data in OpenStreetMap, and from there you can update or edit and add more information doon sa neighborhood para mas rich yung information na i-add natin because we value your local knowledge doon sa map data natin in OpenStreetMap. So if you have any questions about OpenStreetMap and Youth Mappers, you can definitely reach out to me on Facebook, on Twitter, and also sa email ko if you have any questions pa. And then, ayun, join and be part of the YouthMappers movement. And if you have, if you're curious about YouthMappers initiatives, projects, you can follow them on Facebook, on Twitter, and also on Instagram. So ayun, once again, thank you for attending this event, and hopefully nag-spark palalo yung interest ninyo on Youth Mappers and OpenStreetMap. So thank you ulit and enjoy the rest of the event. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Faye. Okay, sige. So do we have questions from the audience? Sige, if you have questions, you can send them over in the chat box. Ayan, so Eunice has a question. How can we join Youth Mappers?
Thank you po, Ms. Eunice, for the question. If you're interested to apply, you can go to youthmappers.org/onboarding. Maybe I can just link it to the chat na lang. Para po you can check yung requirements and other information on applying to Youth Mappers. Ito po. Ayan. Just to give you ano na lang din, onting information pa on applying. So, ang requirement is, minimum requirement is you need to have 3 student leaders, at least 3 student leaders, at least 1 faculty mentor, and then you can also submit yung constitution and bylaws ninyo as a chapter. And then you can map your university as part of the requirement. So at least yun lang yung minimum requirements ni Youth Mappers para maging chapter kayo. And then hindi kailangan na existing student organization na siya. So you can apply as a new organization sa university as long as you could also formalize it or apply it doon sa university nyo mismo. Pero pwede na rin yun na to follow. Basta nakapag-submit kayo ng 3 student leaders and their contact numbers, ganyan, and yung faculty mentor na magiging advisor ninyo, definitely you can apply na to Youth Mappers. Ayan.
So we have another question from Jillian. What made you interested discover mapping in the first place?
Okay. Thank you, Jillian. Actually, kasi yung background ko is geography. So, yung undergrad ko is BS Geography. And then, after I graduated, I was employed to a non-government organization, isang NGO siya. Tapos yung project namin nun is was related to OpenSeatMap. Tapos it happened na yung supervisor ko is also one of the core volunteers of OpenSeatMap Philippines. If you've heard of Maning Sambale, yan nga, local volunteer siya of OpenSeatMap Philippines, and he's currently working as a data specialist in Mapbox ngayon. So siya yung nag-introduce sa akin sa YouthMap as a OpenSeatMap. And then from there, ayun na, parang naging volunteer na talaga ako. Kasi during that time, 2013, wala masyadong female volunteer sa OpenSeatMap. Parang dalawa lang kami ng office mate ko, dalawa kaming female or women mapper ng time na yun. Kaya mas in-encourage nila kami na sumama or mag-volunteer sa OpenSeatMap kasi wala nga hindi balance yung ratio between men and women. Kaya mas marami kaming perspective na pwedeng maibigay or na naibigay sa pagmamapa ng mga facilities or ng data sa OpenSeatMap. And then, ayun, after that, naging part ako ng UPRI or ng NOAA pa siya, Project NOAA pa siya. And then, tinap din kami ni Selena Agaton para maging part ng YouthMappers. And so, ayun, nag-apply kami. And from there, ayun na, meron na kaming power to conduct more trainings, more projects related to OpenSeatMap. Tapos, ayun, eventually naging part na ako ng YouthMappers network. So, I can say na sobrang daming opportunities na na-provide sa akin personally, yung YouthMappers. Kaya I'm very happy to give back din doon sa community kasi nga marami na ding opportunities and projects na naihain yung YouthMappers and OpenSeatMap sa akin. So, ayan. So, ayan. Ibasahin ko na lang din, sir, yung next question, definition yun ng youth, asking as a 35-year-old person. I think for YouthMappers naman, as far as I know, wala naman siyang age limit as long as you're a student of the university chapter na mag-a-apply doon sa YouthMapper. I think doon lang sa bylaws, kailangan i-define ng chapter if you're accepting master's student or bachelor's degree lang talaga. So it would depend doon sa chapter. But I think in terms of age, ang limit lang talaga is hindi siya younger than 18 years old. Ayan, kasi syempre may corresponding na yun, legalities na yun. Pero I think as long as you're part of, or you're a student of the university, then definitely you could apply as a YouthMapper. Ayun. Feeling ko hindi na rin ako pasok kung pag-uusapan natin yung legal, yung definition ng youth kasi I think hanggang 25 lang yun. So hindi na ako pasok doon. So ayun. Yun. I think yun na. Thank you po.
Do you have other questions from the audience? Ako meron.
Yes,
you mentioned kanina some advocacy groups like MapDex and yung sa mental health awareness. Like, maybe this is just to give some idea dun sa mga students if ever they would want to start a YouthMappers or maybe an advocacy group that will also do mapping. No? What else do you think is missing with the mapping movement in the Philippines in terms of advocacy?
Interesting.
Kasi meron na tayo yung sa diba, supporting LGBTQ community and then mental health, like based on your experience talking to the different organizations. Ano pa kaya yung
on top of my head, I think yung gusto kong i-push din sana is for biking community kasi right now 'di ba parang nag-i-increase din yung community of bikers natin dito sa Philippines, pero when you check OpenSeatMap, very limited yung information on biking. Actually, I did preliminary study on that. Pero yun nga, wala lang opportunity pa ngayon na mag-conduct ng more mapping on bikers, ganyan. But it's also a nice advocacy sana, if ever. Kasi it could promote multimodal mobility, ganyan, or transport, and yun nga, yung low carbon solutions,
Active
ganyan.
mobility. Ganyan.
And then, next naman is siguro for disabled community rin, kasi maganda ring i-map yung facilities related or for them specifically. I think now wala pa masyadong data on that, but definitely meron namang specific tags or na pwedeng gamitin for those specific group then. So I think yon. Some of my friends also suggest mapping for senior citizens, since meron din mga facilities na para din naman sa kanila. But I think si Ben-Hur of Smart City also had a project related to senior citizens. Mapatanda, I think yung pangalan. So usang-uso yung Mapa plus some name. So yun. Ayun. So yun yung mga sana mag-increase pa. But definitely yung favorite ko doon is yun nga, yung sa biking, kasi gusto ko din talaga ma-promote na dumami yung or mag-increase yung map data on biking, and then yun nga, promote active mobility, ganyan. At least dito sa Metro Manila, since may mga cities naman na nagpo-promote na talaga ng biking, like for example, BGC, ganyan. Pasig, I think, nagsa-start na din, and Quezon City. So, yun. Hopefully, in the future, ayun, malay nyo, kayo din yung makapag-start ng project na yun. So, ayun po.
Ayan, Lasallians, may hint na. Okay, sige. Ayan. Sige, thank you for that, Faye. Do you have one last question from the audience? Any burning question? Na hindi kayo makakatulog pag hindi nasagot ni Faye tonight? Meron ba?
Wala pa.
Sige. Kung meron man, siguro nag-iisip pa kayo, no? Kung meron man, tas mamaya pa pumasok, send nyo lang sa chat, tapos sabihin nyo kung directed kay Faye yung question. And then maybe she can answer it sa chat. Or maybe if we will have time at the end, we can invite all of the speakers again to go through some of the questions, and maybe we can answer as a panel. Okay, sige. So thank you again, Faye, for presenting the YouthMappers Movement in the Philippines, and hopefully after our session today, makapag-start na rin kami sa Lasal or sa Taft, no? Sige. All right. So, moving on to our next speaker. Okay, so our next speaker, na introduce na rin siya very briefly ni Faye sa kanyang presentation, is Denrazir Atara. Okay, so he is one of the leads at the Association of Geodetic Engineering Students from the University of Science and Technology of Southern Philippines. So we'd like to welcome Denrazir. Tama ba? Denrazir, you're a faculty at the university? Tama ba? Okay, sige. Yes. So welcome natin si Sir Denrazir, and let's listen to his talk.
Okay. Rinig po ba ako, sir? Or...
Yep.
Okay. Sige. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, sir. Thank you for inviting me here. It's my pleasure to be here. Let me start by sharing my screen, siguro. Ayan. Okay, so I am from the University of Science and Technology of Southern Philippines, specifically from the Association of Geodetic Engineering Students, or we term it as USTP AGES. And it is my pleasure to present some of our activities for the past months with regards to us being part of the YouthMappers Network. So again, I'm Engineer Denrazir Matara. I'm a full-time faculty of the Geodetic Engineering Department of the College of Engineering and Architecture of the University of Science and Technology of Southern Philippines dito sa Cagayan de Oro. And I also serve as the moderator slash the faculty advisor of the Association of Geodetic Engineering Students. So it's been 8 months na siguro. Bagong-bago pa lang kasi, bagong offer lang yung program, yung BS Geodetic Engineering dito. So 2020 siya in-offer, then 2021 kami nakapag-establish ng student org. So bagong-bago. And then same year din yung affiliation namin with YouthMappers. So a brief background of our org. The Association of Geodetic Engineering Students, or AGES, is the official student org of the Department of Geodetic Engineering. And as what I've said, bagong-bago lang, last year lang siya na-establish, around August or July ata. And prior to the establishment, the election of officers actually, naging part na agad kami ng YouthMappers chapter because before pa kami na nakabuo ng org, we already have been introduced to to YouthMappers by Miss Faye at that time, and then sumabay na lang din siya dun sa pag-accredit sa org namin. At that time, hindi pa kami accredited, so hindi naman strict kasi YouthMappers, so inallow naman kami maging part ng network. So yeah, it's on July 31 nung affiliate kami with the YouthMappers. Right after that, nag-draft agad kami ng activities for the whole year. And then we've come up with this table. I also submitted this to Miss Faye para humingi ng advice or anything. And then, eto na. Nag-come up kami with this activities. This is for the first semester and this is for the second semester. Ayan. So yung first event namin is during the General Assembly ng department. That was in August 30, 2021. Miss Faye was one of the speakers during that time. They introduced us to YouthMappers. Although nagkaroon na kami ng session before, yung introduction to YouthMappers, pero that time mga officers lang and ako yung naka-attend. So this time, sa whole department na nag-introduce sa YouthMappers. And then 2 weeks after that, so nag-training kami agad. Of course, si Miss Faye yung nag-train sa amin. So we had a training on ID Editor, which is the beginner-friendly na tool for editing on OSM. Ayan, September 18, 2021. Aside from the planned activities for the whole year, meron din kaming mga external invitations na natanggap. So ito, nakita niyo pa sa slides kanina ni Ms. Faye. This was the Mapa at Puno, the Mapathon on Zamboanga del Sur area. This was on August 7. Hindi pa ata kami affiliated. Hindi pa ata kami accredited as an org dito. So yeah, nag-participate kami dito sa Mapathon na to. And wala din kaming absent sa Map and Chat Hour ni Open Mapping Hub. So Map and Chat Hour is a session, 1.5 hour session, that is conducted every last Friday of the month ni Open Mapping Hub. So merong Mapathon, merong networking. So yan, wala kaming absent actually. So every time na may Map and Chat Hour, may representative from the AGES. And in fact, yung YouthMappers Commissioner namin, si Clayden Nalugon, nanalo siya ng GPS unit, Garmin GPS unit, sa isa sa mga games ni Open Mapping Hub during the Map and Chat Hour. Ayan, nanalo siya ng GPS unit. And then one of our student, which is who is also a YouthMappers volunteer, yan, naging part din siya ng She Leads and She Inspires program ni Open Mapping Hub. Si Robbery Jan Elio, ayan siya. Yeah, I think tapos na yung program ata. So yes. And then This one is yung one-on-one session namin with Open Mapping Hub in the person of Sir Miko Tamura. Siya yung community manager ng Open Mapping Hub. So nag-present kami sa kanya ng mga needs and mga projects namin sa org. And then siya din nag-introduce din siya ng mga programs under Open Mapping Hub Asia Pacific. And then nagkaroon din kami ng session on itong drafting ng budget proposal para sa isa sa mga project namin and yung Gantt chart din. Yan, tinulungan niya kami mag-draft ng yung whole proposal actually. And for this one, this was during the Hot Summit last year, November. So yeah, nag-attend kami virtually. And we also participated dito sa Hot Summit. May Pagus JC Hot Summit that time. So yeah, ang hirap mag-compete kasi ang competitive ng mga YouthMappers chapters sa other areas. No? So naka number 1 kami dito and then 2 days after nag-5th na kami. So ang hirap makipag-compete. And then yes, naging media partners din kami ng Pista ng Mapa. This is a local event on open data and software, free maps, community talks, workshops, and also yung Open Mapping Hub dun sa pag-disseminate ng map and chat hour session nila. Yes, media partners. And then, tinatry din namin mag-participate sa iba't ibang mapping activations ni HOT and pati na rin si OSMPH. So this was during the typhoon last year. So may mapping activations sa Dinagat Islands and may mga student ako dito and ako din personally nag-contribute dito sa pag-mapa ng whole Dinagat Islands. Yan. And then this one, this is a partnership with the university in general, USTP. This is Action for Economic Reforms, specifically yung Collab Dev project nila. So yung Collab Dev project is a project to promote human-centered and data-driven development here in the Philippines, and then na-identify yung CDO as one of the provinces na ifo-focus nila dito sa project na to. And then one of the components ng project is yung mapping data na galing sa OSM. So kami kumbaga yung naging bridge doon sa component na yun since we are the official official YouthMappers chapter ng university. So sa amin nagtap si Sir Amon Pangan. So thanks to Ms. Faye for having him connected to us, to me personally. So nag-conduct sila agad-agad ng training after nung talk namin through email. So this was the very first face-to-face na event last year. So shortly after this, nagka-surge na ng Omicron ata. So we're very lucky to have conducted this event. So this was November 21. So excited din yung mga students because this is also their first time seeing each other for the past 2 years. So first time din na makita-kita dito sa event na to. Although limited lang yung mga nakasali kasi 20 to 25 lang ang kaya ng room, pero naging successful naman. Ayan, walang social distancing. Pero successful naman. Here sa bottom right, si Dr. Fajardo, siya yung focal person ng Collab Dev sa university namin, and si Engineer Bonson Mabulay, siya yung director ng Research and Technology Innovation. Yan, sila yung parang bridge dito sa training papunta sa amin. So, doon sa first day, mga first year almost yung mga nag-attend, and then sa second day, mga second year naman to. Yeah. Second year yung mga nag-attend dito. So, nag-training si Sir Amon sa amin doon sa mamapa gamit yung ID editor, and then doon din sa Kobo as our main or primary na field data collection tool. So babalik sila sa June for the phase 2 nung project. Yun na yung actual field data collection. Hopefully by that time wala ng pandemic, hopefully. So yes, this was the last day. So 3-day event yung, yes, 3-day event yun, dalawang days yung training, and then ito yung parang culmination ata. So this is the Mindanao Roadshow. And tatlo kami galing Aegis, ako as the moderator, and then si Helen and then si Stephen, yung silang dalawa from the YouthMappers sa Aegis. So nag-sign kami dun sa tarpaulin. So isa kami dun sa mga signatories as representative dun sa youth community and dun sa OpenStreetMap community. Ayan. And then after that, December until now, we are active engaging with this project kasi si Sir Amon nagkakandak siya ng monthly mapathon sa amin para pagdating ng June, kumpleto na yung data doon sa city namin kasi yung goal is to map the whole CDO, which is now currently at around 14% pa. Pero ang dami ng tiles na namapa. So parang iilan na lang siguro ang imamap. Yeah, yun yung target by June. Hopefully matapos na yun. Imapa yung whole CDO. Imapa and i-validate. On the other hand, so this is the recently concluded YouthMappers Awards and Recognition. So we are grateful na this year naka-receive kami ng 3 award from YouthMappers. So we did not expect, considering na bagong-bago pa lang kami sa network. So we received this Women's Participation Award kasi ang dami naming female students ngayon. So yun yung naging basis para sa award na to. So, Women's Participation Award. And then next, ito naman is para sa akin. So James Kweku Eshun Mentoring Award for offering the highest level of support to YouthMappers chapter. So para sa akin as the faculty advisor. So I'm very grateful to have received this award. And na-awardan din yung first ever vlog ko sa YouthMappers. This was actually yung first entry ko doon sa OSM Diary. So that time in-explore ko lang. This was also after the training ng collab dev sa amin. So in-explore ko lang nag-try lang ako mag-post ng diary kasi hindi ko pa natatry that time. So sinabit ko din to sa YouthMappers as blog ng org namin. So buti lang na-publish siya within the year kasi parang mag-e-end na ata ang year nung sinabit ko to. So published on December 30. Yan. So nakaabot. Yeah. Isa siya sa mga best YouthMappers award. YouthMappers blog. So marami kaming na-awardan nito actually. And then just last week, we have been granted by the OSMPH a fund to execute, operationalize our project named Mapa. So we are very grateful na kami yung napili for this grant. This will be our first ever major project ng org namin. So this is, ang gagawin namin dito is more on field data collection. So yung mga points of interest namin is yung mga student-related establishments and mga services like yung mga libraries, apartments, laundry services, and other student-related facilities. Yan. And yeah, this will be our future projects. So number 1 is the internship. So we are planning to conduct an internship this summer. I mean, sa mid-year, during their mid-year break. So the goal here is to establish a parang meron na kaming local na validator and local na advanced mapper sa org namin para if in case may mga urgent projects or may mga mapping activations, so madali kaming makakapag-mapa. Meron kaming itatap para mag-mapa and mag-validate. And then number 2 is elective. This is actually a proposal to our curriculum since bago pa lang yung program. So yung mga elective courses is naka-generalize pa, hindi pa siya naka-specify. So I'm proposing to have or integrate yung OSM related na courses. Since meron kaming disaster risk reduction management as identified as one of our electives, so might as well gawin na lang siyang disaster risk reduction and management mapping or humanitarian mapping para may concept ng OSM or yung mapping ma-integrate siya dun sa course. So this is currently in writing because ipopropose pa to sa board to be offered hopefully next year. Yan. And then, yeah, OSM communities, we are planning to establish a local community here in CDO. So meron kaming project. I mean, naano lang ako as project member. Na-list lang ako as project member. But the university is aiming at establishing a local community here by giving trainings to yung mga non-student na mga individuals like out of school youth. Yun yung main target namin, out of school youth, LGUs, mga SK, ganyan. This is, the goal of this is to, yun, parehas. Para if in case may mga mapping activations or may mga urgent projects, meron kaming matatap na community or mga individuals na magmamap. And itong goal is hopefully by 2025 onwards, ma-establish na yung community dito, local community dito sa CDO. And then yung last one is orientation to high school students. So hopefully sa upcoming school year, magfa-face-to-face na. So may mga caravans, may mga, di ba, may mga career orientation events. So yun, plano namin i-disseminate yung information about sa mapping through OSM and pwede din yung maging avenue for the advertisement of our program. So yeah, I think that would be all for my presentation. If you have any questions or queries, put them in the chat or you can contact us at our official Facebook page and our Google Groups email. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Den Razir. Okay, and thank you for sharing your initiatives sa sa University of Science and Technology of Southern Philippines. All right, sige. So do we have questions from the audience? Do you have questions from the audience? Sige, maybe I will start. So my question is similar dun sa tinanong ko kay Faye kanina. So sa CDO, you have this big project of mapping CDO, tama? So so yung mga building footprints, yung mga ganyan, yung mga roads. Sa pinresent ni Faye, meron yung sa Mapbex and then meron yung dun sa sa mental health awareness. Sa CDO ba, what advocacy mapping projects do you think would be very helpful for CDO residents? Nakatulad nung ginagawa sa Mapbex and mental health awareness.
Yes, sir. So aside doon sa yung ongoing project namin, yung Mapa Dayon, yung focus namin doon is more on student services, yung mga anything related to students. Meron din kami isang parang pinopropose pa lang na project dito sa CDO, that is promoting yung mga safe spaces for Muslim people, because CDO is a very diverse yung culture dito, so mix yung mga, in terms of yung mga religions, so mix siya. So malaking tulong if magkakaroon ng Mapa to promote yung mga Muslim communities, magkaroon sila ng safe spaces, ganyan. Yun po, sir.
Okay, tama. Sige. Thank you for that, Benghazin. Sige, do we have other questions from the audience?
Sir, pwede po bang mag-plug ng mga ano?
Sige, go.
Isesend ko sa,
Sige. Gusto mo mag-share ulit?
hindi, sa chat na lang.
Sige. Ayan, sige. So, sinend ni Dendazir yung mga SOCMED links nila. So, if you are interested about mapping projects in CDO, okay, or related to his organization, you are welcome to like their SOCMED pages and follow their SOCMED pages. Okay. Sige. I guess meron akong isang final question na lang for you. So kanina you were sharing how your organization is doing groundwork, field work for collecting data. What can you say is the biggest challenge that your team has faced in collecting, mapping, and validating these data?
Actually, sir, in terms of field data collection, hindi pa kami nag-operationalize ng field data. Kasi due to health restrictions, yes, yun ata yung pinaka-big challenge.
I see.
Yung pandemic.
Okay, sige. I guess yun lang. Thank you, Denrazir. Okay. Sige. So our next speaker, let me just share my screen again. So our next speaker is Michael Joshua Orais from UP Visayas Tacloban YouthMappers. So let's hear from Josh, okay, about their different initiatives, mapping initiatives in their organization. So Josh?
Yes, sir. Hello. Let me just share my screen lang po. Nandyan na po, di ba?
Yep.
Okay, so hello everyone. Good evening. So first now, let me thank the organizers of this event, to Sir Brian and to Ms. Fayandel for directly messaging us and inviting us in this event and allowing us to share the experiences of our organization as a new member of the relatively new member of the YouthMappers community. So as we've all heard now, both speakers have said a lot of things about the YouthMappers community. Pero let me just reiterate and add a few things sa mga sinabi nila. So the YouthMappers is an international community with GIS, or Geographic Information System, at its centerpiece. So it aims to address development challenges through the use of open geospatial data. So note lang dito, no, highlight on the open, since this community advocates free and open source tools and data. So the last time I checked, this global network is now already made up of 305 chapters within 65 countries. So yun nga, as Ms. Faye said kanina, most of these are student-led organizations. So one of its local chapters here in the Philippines is the organization that I am representing tonight. So this is the UP Tacloban YouthMappers. So as its current president, I'd like to share to you our organization experiences from its foundations, its past activities, and future plans. So this organization, the UP Tacloban YouthMappers, based in the University of the Philippines, Tacloban, Visayas Tacloban College, is, as Ms. Faye said kanina, the sixth YouthMapper chapter to be established here in the Philippines. we're kind of, or rather, relatively a young organization, just recognized a year ago, March of 2021. So a little backstory lang no, on this organization. The initiative actually in starting our chapter goes way back to 2019. So before everything pa nung 2019 pre-pandemic times pa yun, before we were officially established, several students were already given the opportunity to participate in a GIS Day celebration held by our university. Then through this, there were events held like, as you can see from the photos, merong map exhibit, then JS forums. These events introduced us to the world of maps and gave us great possibilities in pursuing the GIS field. But sadly, due to the pandemic, these newfound interests weren't acted upon immediately. So si Miss Faye na yun, yung lumapit sa amin mismo, I think that was late 2021. Oh, no, late 2020, yeah. When we discovered the existence of YouthMappers, we made an initiative to apply and officially establish a local chapter of our own. Pero actually, it did not go smoothly at first since we were an independent organization and was not tied to any academic orgs. So we had to find members of our own, and it was very difficult considering the remote setup that we're in. However, though, despite the lack of support and the lack of hands-on experience on any JS technologies, we were still able to gather enough prospects to start our organization. So yun nga, due to our small population at the time, we actually we had no solid plans for the future of the organizations at first. So what we decided is to observe muna and learn from other youth mapper chapters to establish a starting point. So at this time, dito namin, we deeply appreciated being a member of a network of organizations. We were connected to other chapters, tapos they were constantly reaching out to us and providing any assistance that we need. They even notified us of the events that we can attend and learn from. So with that, for the few months after our recognition, we only participated in mapping events held by more established institutions and organizations. So we didn't make projects of our own lang muna. Parang we partnered lang muna with other known organizations to lay out more groundwork for our future plans. So the most notable one, this was shown kanina, I believe kay Miss Faye and the second speaker. Itong mapathon ng MapBex, we also participated in this. We also participated in this event. So for us, the new members of the organizations, this was the first technical hands-on that we had on mapping. So with this, our participation in this event gave us an idea on what to do next, on what our first projects are going to be. So when November of 2021 came, so November, diba, as we all know, is, or as some may not know, is the annual celebration of the GIS Day. So dito yung mga mapping organizations all around the world, dito sila usually maraming events because they're celebrating the GIS Day. So inspired by the Mapathon that we previously attended, yung sa MapBex nga, also with the help of Miss Faye, we held the beginner Mapathon in our local area. So this year, the picture in the middle is in Tacloban, and the third picture is in Saugod. So even though it's just a basic mapping, we still had to be careful because we consider ourselves to be still beginner mappers, and that's why we had to be very careful for any changes made on existing data. So for this event, we invited people all over our region, and not limited only to GIS practitioners, but anyone who were willing to learn. So through this event run, we were able to attract major universities and partnered with us. So this event, as said kanina, di ba, na we were the first outside of Metro Manila to be recognized as a local youth mapper chapter. So with this, we encourage other universities in our region to also establish a local chapter of their own. This event became the a stepping stone for their universities para aware sila kung anong meron sa youth mappers. So since yun nga, di ba, November, it's a time for celebration of GIS Day. Aside from our event, several other organizations also held their own events. So one of the events that we took part, na mention na rin to kanina, I believe sa second na speaker, is the Pista ng Mapa. And similar to them, our role was also media partners. This was actually a big event. In this online conference lasted for 3 days, where JAS-related talks, projects, and workshops were presented all throughout the entirety of the event. So for this year, the activity that we've done is to take the free courses offered by the YouthMappers website. So as you can see here, they've just offered it for a limited time from January 24 to February 20. And this series of courses covered introductory instructions for the use of OpenStreetMap. So here, even though we've already had experience in working with OpenStreetMap, we still took this course since it rewards you with proof that you've officially taken this course. So not only that yun nga, you've officially taken this course, you're also going to earn a badge ba yun? O badge yung binigay nila. And this can help in your credentials for maybe future job hunting. Ganun. So although these courses are already closed, other courses may still be open in the YouthMappers website. So if anyone's interested, be on the lookout na lang for that. And balik tayo sa plans of our organization, the future plans naman. So right now, our main goal is to broaden our scope. Kasi our main problem right now is our limited population. So we really want to increase this population so that mas marami kaming magawa and we can participate to more events. So we continue on encouraging students to be aware and appreciate the real-world applications and contributions of GIS. Pero, of course, later on, we will aim to expand our influence and in turn expand the mapping community in the entire Eastern Visayas, since ito naman talaga yung pinaka-main goal namin, to spread the mapping community in the whole region. So, to close this talk na lang, as the youth mappers say, we aim to cultivate a generation of young leaders to create resilient communities and to define their world by mapping it. So with that, through the events that we hold, we sincerely hope to inspire and embolden everyone, especially the youth, to realize their role and potential future future movers and leaders with GIS as their tools in defining the world. So that's it's pretty short lang po.
All right, thank you very much, Josh. Okay, for sharing UP Tacloban's mapping organization and some of your initiatives and activities for the past year, no? So, do we have questions from the audience? Habang naghihintay tayo ng question from the audience, ako meron. Meron pala. Sir Michael, what's the hardest part of being the leader of a newly formed organization?
For me, kasi the hardest part is to make things move. Kasi nga, due to our limited population, di mo mapipilit yung iba kasi meron ring mga internet problems. So, yeah, definitely population at
Mm-mm. Ayun. Sige. So, Josh, like, what made you start a UP Visayas Tacloban chapter or an organization in your
as
university?
I said kanina po sa presentation, the spark started during 2019. No? That was still pre-pandemic pa, face-to-face pa yun. So we kind of enjoyed the events that was held during the GIS days. There were map exhibits, the GIS talks. For that, even though parang unconscious na, and we really didn't know about the existence of youth mappers yet at that time. Maybe some part of us got hooked in the idea of GIS, and when the opportunity came, we grabbed it. Pero yun nga, kulang lang kami sa tao.
Mm-mm. Ayun. Sige. May question dito. Can students outside of UP join daw ba your organization? Maybe they're also from Tacloban. I'm not sure.
For now po, our organization is limited lang kasi for UP students kasi meron din kaming pina-follow na rules sa university. But if you're living near Tacloban or kung saang school man, you can encourage naman yung people there to establish a chapter of their own.
Mm-mm. But what if for some events that you are doing or initiatives, are people outside of the UP Tacloban community welcome to contribute?
Yes, sir. We invite kahit walang limit po yung invitation namin. Yung sa event namin for the Mapathon, there were people from Mindanao and Luzon who participated in that event.
Mm-mm. And since you mentioned kanina that you're really lacking the manpower to really do different activities for your organization, have you thought of like doing collaborations with other nearby youth mapper orgs?
Or all of our activities were collaborations with other institutions. Di pa kami
Ang sarili lang.
sarili namin kasi di namin kaya.
Mm-mm. I see. Pero kung magkakaroon kayo ng sarili nyo ng like activity talaga na kayo lang yung mag-organize, ano kaya yung initiative na yun for Tacloban?
Well, for now po, the initiative is really to update and improve the mapping data in Tacloban, since that was the main problem that we encountered in discussing what project we're going to choose. When looking at the map data, we saw na last update ng data sa Eastern Visayas is still on 2013. So that was after Yolanda pa yun. So that was the main concern namin, is to track and update yung mga bagong structures and everything.
I see. All right. Sige. Thank you very much, Josh, for sharing about your organization, sharing about some of the challenges. So hopefully, if there are people from Tacloban who are also in this session today, please contact Josh. Josh, baka pwedeng i-send mo na lang sa chat yung email mo. Baka lang makatulong sila sa mga future initiatives mo, even though they're not from UP Visayas. Okay? Sige. Maraming salamat, Josh.
Thank you.
And sige. So yung last presenter is actually ako na. Okay. So to end our session for today, I guess as hosts, we just want to share some of the mapping projects, quote unquote, mapping projects that we've been doing in the past and some of the projects that we are currently doing today. So this is both from the Center for Complexity and Emerging Technologies, or COMET, and also from the Dr. Andrew L. Tan Data Science Institute from DLSU. Okay? Sige. So let me but before I begin my talk, I just want to recognize the presence of our executive director, Andito ba siya? Yes. Ayan. So si Dr. Macario Cordel II. Okay, so he's our executive director at ALTDSI. Ayan. So he's the one supporting many of the mapping initiatives, and also he also supported this activity and yung yung pag-push ng initiative na mag-start ng sarili din nating mapping org sa DLSU. Ayan. Sige. Okay, so thank you, Doc Mac. So since wala pa talaga kami YouthMappers org, okay, I will just share with you some of our projects. No? What they are, ano yung mga motivations, so yung mga story behind them. Okay, so the first mapping project that we did at, so wala pang ALTDSI noon. Okay, so at the Center for Complexity and Emerging Technologies, so we are a multi and interdisciplinary research center under the College of Computer Studies. So, ayan. So, one of the first mapping projects that we did back then, mga around 2017 pa yata to, or 2018, was the project to assess the evacuation suitability of Marikina. So I don't know if some of you have seen this before, kasi medyo gamit na gamit ko rin siya sa mga courses ko in some of the, like in pista ng Mapa nung 2020 yata or 20, yeah. I think na-present ko na rin to doon. Okay, so ang pangalan ng project na to is Riesgo. Okay, so it's meant to assess the evacuation suitability. So gaano ba ka-safe or gaano ba ka-ideal mag-evacuate ng tao sa isang lugar. So when we finished that project as an undergraduate thesis, we created this visualization tool na parang may data stories aside. Okay, so this one we use data on yung land elevation, and then we also use data on the amenities that are around yung mga critical facilities around Marikina at that time. Okay, ano yung mga yon. And then we also used yung flood hazard data. This is coming from Project NOAA. So ginamit namin yung flood hazard maps from Project NOAA. So we had the 5-year, 25-year, and 100-year flood susceptibility maps. And then we also looked at the locations of current evacuation centers. So alam naman natin sa Philippines, there are usually ang mga evacuation centers, yung mga schools, yung mga yung mga covered courts, mga gyms. Okay? So community centers, so ayan, pwede nating ma-view yan dyan. Okay? So when we develop this data visualization and story tool, ang main goal talaga namin is to communicate the different indicators that we use to assess yung evacuation suitability, because at that time, hindi pa talaga siya yung klase ng metric na ginagamit ng mga LGUs to actually see where in their city they can build new evacuation centers. Okay? So, meron pang heuristics, yung ginagamit pa rin na heuristics or rule of thumb ng mga LGUs is, syempre pag matataas yung lugar, doon tayo maglalagay ng evacuation center, or pag may school, automatic evacuation center yon. So, we wanted to create a tool and a metric to help LGUs improve their decision making. Okay, so we also looked at the population levels. Ayan, so population levels in Marikina, and then in terms of yung coverage din nung mga existing na evacuation centers. So, ilan ba yung mga tao na nakatira, okay, within a certain radius from that evacuation center. So, ito yung pinapakita dyan. So, the darker the color, the more people that is covered by that evacuation center. So you can see that some evacuation centers, parang they are expected to serve around 13,000 or 14,000 people. So yun yung expected, assuming na lahat ng bahay nila babahain. So dapat magkasya sila doon sa evacuation center na yon kasi yun yung pinakamalapit. Okay, so that's what we wanted to visualize here. Okay, yung current situation. And then we also looked at the estimated capacity of these evacuation centers. Okay, so we looked at the total land area ng evacuation centers and then we computed an estimate number of people. Di ba uso ngayon yung pag-count kung ilan yung taong kasya sa isang lugar? Okay, so ginawa rin namin yan sa project na to. So we used a formula to estimate ilan ba yung kakasya dito sa evacuation center na to. Usong-uso yan these days. Okay? So yun din ginamit din namin yan to assess. Okay, ilan ba yung kakasya? Okay? Para lang ma-communicate din namin how good or how bad the situation is currently. Okay, with the current list of evacuation centers. And then we also looked at the accessibility. Tiningnan lang namin if you want to go to this evacuation center, okay, kung gusto mo makarating, okay, saan manggagaling yung mga tao kung gusto nilang makarating dun sa evacuation center in 5 minutes. So yung mga taong nandito sa paligid na to, they can walk to the center in 5 minutes. So may iba-iba rin yan, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. So may mga isochrones na ginawa na. Okay? So ayan, so yan yung mga data na ginagamit namin noon. Okay? And then of course, pinakita na rin namin at the end of this tool, ano nga ba yung evacuation suitability ng area. So pag black, ibig sabihin very unsafe siya. So using all of the indicators that you saw earlier, yung accessibility, how high yung land elevation, ganyan, we combine them into a multi-criteria model to compute for a composite score. Okay? So tapos yung mga dark blue, yun yung pinaka-suitable. Okay, na areas for evacuation. So we found out na yung area ng Marikina Heights, yung area around Marikina Memorial Center, Marikina Sports Center, tsaka yung malapit sa Ateneo de Manila University, okay, dun sa kabilang side ng Marikina River, yun yung mga ideal areas for evacuation because of different indicators. Okay? So, and with this tool, so sinabit din namin to for a competition. So this tool, this data story, won the grand prize dun sa VisRisk challenge noong 2019. Okay? So yon. So of course, itong project na to, hindi pa siya perfect. So nung pinakita namin siya sa Marikina, okay, marami pa sila mga feedback on how to improve, okay, the project. So currently we have a group. Okay, currently we have an undergraduate group sa DLSU that is working on an improved version of the Riesgo project before. So ngayon gumagamit kami ng ibang set of indicators. So in-improve namin yung mga indicators. So kunyari dati yung accessibility, we just count how many roads. Kasi kung mapapansin nyo sa map, naka-grid siya. Tama? So may mga cells. So kung mapapansin nyo, naka-grid siya. Ayan. Pero ngayon naka 3D siya. So naka-grid siya. Tapos dati, kinakount lang namin yung number of roads na dumadaan sa cell na yon. And then pag maraming roads, maganda yung accessibility. Yun lang yung assumption namin before. But of course, that's not necessarily the case. So we tried to improve this by incorporating yung flood susceptibility and the road network. Okay? So hindi na lang kami basta nagta-count ng roads na dumadaan doon or napapunta doon sa cell na yon. So we filter first the roads that goes to that cell and then we look at the susceptibility of those roads sa flooding. So kung kunwari, sabihin na lang natin na may isang major road dyan, okay, na dumadaan doon sa cell, tapos pero okay, mataas yung susceptibility niya sa flood, hindi mo pa rin siya matatawag na accessible talaga. So parang may penalty doon sa score. Okay, so the less susceptible you are, okay, the higher the score you will add to the accessibility indicator. So parang ganun yung mga improvements na ginawa namin sa pag-compute namin ng evacuation suitability. And we also expanded the coverage of the project to include Marikina and Pasig. Okay, so syempre Marikina na yung initial namin, may dataset na kami. Okay, so ngayon dinadagdag na lang din namin yung sa Pasig. Okay, and we also improved the data visualization, so may mga explanation na dito sa gilid so that you can easily understand bakit ganun yung score na nakukuha niya. Okay, so this is one of the mapping projects that ito yung parang ano namin, parang isa sa mga flagship projects namin sa COMET at sa ALTDSI when it comes to mapping. Okay. And then aside from that, I also want to share yung isa pa. So kanina may na-mention si Faye about yung sa accessibility for disabled people. So one of the projects that we also did last year was this one. Pero hindi pa siya sa OpenStreetMaps talaga na minamap natin yung mga infrastructure na ideal for ano to, or that would help disabled people move around. Okay, so dito gumawa kami ng project wherein we ask people, nagka-crowdsourcing kami, we ask people to rate the accessibility of a sidewalk. So using Google Street View images, okay, so using Google Street View images, we ask people to first identify ano ba yung mga objects dun sa sidewalk na sa tingin nyo nagko-contribute doon sa accessibility score niya. So they can select, for example, a sidewalk vendor. May nakita silang sidewalk vendor dun sa sidewalk, or may poste sa gitna ng sidewalk, or maybe trees or ganyan. Okay, so they try to select that from the image. So medyo assisted na rin to kasi nag-run na rin kami ng object detection para may mga naka-pre-select na. But if ever may mga additional objects sila na gustong i-highlight, pwede pa rin silang mag-drawing at magdagdag ng objects. Okay? So yun yung mga obstructions, bale, na-identify nila yung mga obstructions sa road, and then they assign the score. So may scale dito sa baba. Okay? So what's your accessibility rating for this specific sidewalk? And then they also choose the surface type, kung smooth, rough, or slippery yung surface, or wala bang sidewalk dyan. Okay? So yan yung ginagawa ng tool, nagka-crowdsourcing lang siya. Okay? And then of course, a single image is being shown to multiple people para makakuha ng iba't ibang subjective score. Kasi alam naman natin na yung gantong scale, subjective yan. Okay? Depende sa tao. And what we wanted to come up after, okay, is to use the data that we will gather from there to actually identify what makes a good sidewalk. Okay, so based on their score, so may mga obstructions na na-identify. We also measured yung sidewalk width, okay, yung mga ganyan. So may iba pa kami mga data na kinulek. So ayan, so we tried to identify ano ba yung mga contributors to a good sidewalk accessibility score. And then we use it to train a model just to see how much they contribute to that score. And then at the end, we also mapped, okay, yung mga scores na yon. So green means very accessible, and then pag orange, hindi accessible. So hopefully we can continue this project, so getting more crowdsourced data and then presenting all of those crowdsourced data into a single map para makita natin how accessible are different cities in Metro Manila. So yun. So currently yung dataset namin only covers Makati and Manila. Okay, but hopefully we can expand it to different cities later on. Okay, so that's one of the projects that we've been doing. Ano pa ba? And then we're also doing ito commission project na to, but since we're part of the center, we also want to share. We're also doing project with a non-government organization with a province. Okay, so one of the things that we're doing there is to map farm locations. kasi sa OSM walang ganong klaseng data, farm location. So we wanted to map out the different parcels of land that are connected to a specific farm and then identify ano ba yung mga crops na nakatanim sa farms na to. Okay. So para siyang yung OSM ID. Okay, parang ganon. So magdo-drawing ka rin dyan. Pwede ka mag-drawing dyan. Ayan. So enter. Tapos pipiliin mo lang yung crop na tinatanim, anong schedule nung planting mo for that crop, ganyan. So yan yung isa sa mga mapping project na ginagawa namin for this specific tool. Okay? And yeah, I think that's it from me. So at the Center for Complexity and Emerging Technologies, we do a lot of these mapping projects. Meron din kaming ginagawang mapping project for assessing yung driving comfort. Gaano ba ka-comfortable mag-drive sa kalsadang to at saka yung gaano ba ka-secure in terms of yung amount of lighting, okay, dun sa kalsada na yun. Okay? So similar siya dito sa project na to. Ayun. So yun yung mga ginagawa namin sa COMET at sa ALTDSI, and we hope, okay, those of you in this session would also be interested to continue some of our projects, especially kung taga DLSU ka and you want to be part of our center, our institute. Ayun. And hopefully, okay, hopefully some of you would be interested then to join us in establishing our own YouthMappers organization at DLSU. So yung mga students dito, magsisend na lang kami ng email just to for a survey lang, quick survey about your interest in joining the future YouthMappers organization at DLSU. So yun, I'm now opening the chat box to questions. May mga questions ba kayo about the projects that I showed? Yes, Eunice.
Wait lang. Okay. So, in your mapping projects and perhaps other projects, these mappers, it seems that yung mga data needed for mapping are publicly available or crowdsourced. So I guess this is a question for all of the speakers as well as like anyone else. Like how important yung role, yung cooperation ng LGU, and then can we actually do the mapping on our own, or is it better if we can actually tap the LGU or any other government agencies to actually help us with these kinds of initiatives? Because I guess partially we also know that at least LGUs may have some form of data, but they might not be as open to share. Or do you have experience with that? For this is mostly for everyone else. Yeah.
Okay. So yung kunyari sa Oriental Mindoro, meron naman sila pero hindi siya public. They only use it. So ngayon nire-request din namin. So hopefully mabigay na nila. So yun.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's one of the reason then why we came up with this tool. So hindi siya diretso sa OSM. If you notice, si OSM kasi may OSM ID na, di ba? So technically you can do this. Although I'm not sure kung may farms ba doon, Faye? Hindi ko rin sure eh. May farm ba?
Meron naman, but yun nga,
Yeah.
very limited lang din siya.
Ayun. So, kasi dito, kailangan siyang gamitin for risk assessment. So kung kunwari, pag may dumaan na bagyo, ano yung risk ng mga banana farms natin? So at least dito, we can easily filter out yung mga banana farms and then sila lang yung computan ng exposure. Kunwari. Kasi alam na namin na ito lang yung mga farms na nagtatanim ng banana. Okay. And then yung iba coconut, yung iba rice, ganyan. So kaya ganito yung pagkaka-design namin ng tool. And of course, meron pa kaming ibang mga features dito like ito yung amenities tsaka yung value chain, very close na siya to the OSMID. Kasi yung amenities parang mga hospitals lang din to. So ang hope namin actually is, even though they are adding data using this tool, eventually ang hope namin is ma-add din siya sa sa OSM kung may way. Kasi ito na yung parang pinupush namin na gagamitin nila kasi centralized na, lahat na nandito. But the later on, syempre gusto rin namin mag-contribute dun sa open source movement or open data movement. So hopefully ma-connect namin siya if ever that's possible. So, yeah, may iba pa bang questions? Or maybe Faye would like to answer din yung question ni Eunice.
Well, yun nga po, yung sa collaboration with LGUs. Actually, important din naman siya. Important na may buy-in, kumbaga, from the LGU para they could support the activities that you wanna implement para po sa project. And aside from LGU, hindi lang naman din kasi tayo nalilimit, diba, sa LGU. So we can also partner with other organizations or communities. So mas maganda if you have a project, you could also partner with local communities mismo para they could help you with your project, kanyan. Hindi lang on logistics but also doon mismo sa implementation no project. Kasi mahaluan ng local context or local knowledge para mas mag-improve yung project objectives and yung implementation itself. So, ayun, I think.
And I think maganda rin na may collaboration with LGUs kasi when it comes to, di ba may validation part din yung pag nag-a-add ka? So it helps na katulong mo na sila sa pag-validate or or sila na mismo nag-a-add.
Yun nga lang, sir. Yun yung, ang mahirap lang kasi talaga sa LGU is yung kadalasan based from experience namin collaborating with LGUs. Yung binabato nilang tao sa trainings, ganyan, is hindi regular position sa government. Tapos parang contractual lang sila. So after namin sila matrain, syempre hindi naman secured din yung job nila. So mapuputol. So nasasayangan din kami doon sa efforts or hindi nagkaroon ng transfer of knowledge din kasi. So yun yung mahirap din kasi walang dedicated personnel for mapping, for GIS para mag-maintain and sustain ng data. Ayan pa.
Ayun. Sige. Thank you for that, Faye. Sige. May
Thank you.
question dito. If so, okay. So, there's a question about how long did it take the team to accomplish yung Riesgo project, considering everything up to data gathering, accomplishing the application, etc. So, yung original na Riesgo project, it was a 1-year engagement because it was an undergraduate thesis. So, they worked hard. Since it was the first time that we're doing a mapping project, so we parang baptism of fire. So we had to figure out everything from using yung QGIS, how to process geospatial data. So it contributed dun sa amount of time to actually collect and process those data so that we can come up with yung evacuation suitability map that you see here. So medyo matagal siya at that time. Okay. Tsaka hindi rin namin alam kasi kung saan namin kukunin din yung data. So it was really a 1-year project. But for building this specific tool, siguro less than 1 month. Oo. Kasi ito medyo straightforward na. May data na, na-process na, may output na rin. So it's just a matter of making it available sa Mapbox, di ba? Tama.
Yeah. Disclaimer lang din for this one. For the first project, building the tool was relatively faster kasi we were cramming it for the competition, and at the same time, yun nga sabi ni Brian, the data was already available, it was already processed, so may output na, and then we just had to put it on Mapbox color it and code it. So this application has only front end, wala siyang back end service. So lahat parang naka-host na siya sa Mapbox.
Oo.
So unlike I think yung Riesgo version 2, which is a little bit more data intensive kasi mas marami na siyang kino-collect and at the same time marami rin siyang kino-host. It's gonna take longer. Similar with the project that we have with Oriental Mindoro that takes really a longer period of time because meron ka ng data management, data hosting, especially if you want your data to be a little bit more private kasi medyo sensitive siya. So it might take maybe 1 to 2 years depending on how fast and how many people you have in your team.
Ayun. And just to share, yung tool na to, kami lang dalawa ni Eunice yung nag-dev. Pero si Eunice talaga yung dev. Ang trabaho ko dito was coming up with the data story, yung nasa kaliwa. yun yung ano namin, yung distribution ng task namin. Si Eunice yung dev, ako yung yung taga-ayos nung narrative dito sa gilid, tas kung paano mag-flow, yun. So yun yung separation namin. Okay. But for this yung version 2 nung Riesgo, this is a 4 people project. So mas mabilis nila tong na-accomplish kahit na 3 yung cities na ginawa nila ng assessment. Kasi nga we already learned from the previous one, we already knew how to compute the values. Alam na namin, tinuturuan na rin namin yung team how to compute it. So may experience na kasi kami. So yung pag-build mismo ng tool na to, it was only 1 term or around 14 weeks. So parang more or less. Okay? So yan na yung current state niya after 14 weeks. Okay? Or maybe more kasi nung may isa pang term na nauna. So maybe kalahati ng term na yon, nag-uumpisa na rin silang gumawa for this one. So sabihin na natin mga 20 weeks more or less. So that's how long it took them to build it. Ayan. So pero may mga improvements pa to, hindi pa to tapos talaga. May mga gagawin pa kami for that one. And wala pa dito yung Manila na data. So ang nandito pa lang, ang computed pa lang namin, Marikina and Pasig. Sige. Ayan. So Riesgo lang naman yung question. So hindi ko na di-discuss yung sa ibang projects. Do you have other questions from the audience? Okay, sige. So kung wala nang question from the audience, then I guess ipa-plug ko na lang yung center namin. So so the name of our center is Center for Complexity and Emerging Technologies. So as I mentioned earlier, this is a research center under the College of Computer Studies. So for the DLSU students who are in this session today, I invite you, if you are interested to work on these kinds of projects, to join our center. At the same time, okay, since you Comet, parang multi-affiliations na siya. So we're also affiliated with the Data Science Institute. So by default, you will also be affiliated with ALTDSI. So yung Data Science Institute naman, mostly ang mga projects namin, marami din kaming mga mapping projects. So for example, yung PISA na dataset, reading performance, we also created a visualization tool with maps for that project. So yung mga vaccine allocation model, so may visualization din kami and mapping for that one. So we do all sorts of data related projects at DSI. Ayun. Yeah, yun lang naman. Sige. So I guess this is the end of our session today. So I would like to thank everyone again for attending this talk and for spending time with other local mapping organizations with Denrazir, si Josh, tsaka si Faye. Okay? And I hope the next time that we hold this one, meron na rin tayo. Okay, sa DLSU. Okay? Sige. So, before you leave for dinner, okay, can we have a group photo first kung okay lang naman sa inyo. So if you can open your cameras, especially yung mga speakers natin, Faye, Josh, andiyan ka pa ba Josh? Ayan, si Denrazir. Ayan, kung pwede kayong mag-open ulit ng camera. So very Filipino to, no? Before we end any event.